Hello everyone, Rahul Shah here, trying to make investing accessible and profitable for the average investor. Now, my goal is to help regular people invest their money wisely and make a profit. I have been in the investing world for 20 years and have learned about a lot of different industries. But there was one I could never quite understand: pharma stocks or pharmaceutical industry. It was that one big tricky subject I kept avoiding. Well, I finally decided to stop putting it off and learn all about it. I've used AI to help me research and break down the complicated information. I created this easy to follow guide for myself first, and I'm sharing it with you now in case it helps you too. So let's start. Before modern pharmaceuticals, humans used a variety of methods to treat illness, relying on a blend of natural remedies, physical practices, and spiritual beliefs. Now, the most common approach was the use of traditional and natural remedies. Herbalism was a cornerstone of healing, with cultures worldwide developing extensive knowledge of medicinal plants. For example, willow bark was used for pain relief and foxglove for heart conditions. Animal and mineral substances were also utilized, though sometimes with toxic results. Physical and surgical practices were also developed. Now, crude forms of surgery such as tree panning to release evil spirits or setting broken bones were also common. Spiritual and ritualistic healing played a significant role, with healers using rituals and incantations to appease spirits. Prayer and faith were also central to the healing process in many cultures. Finally, some ancient traditions took a holistic view of health, emphasizing the importance of lifestyle, diet, and hygiene. Hippocrates' famous quote, "Let food be thy medicine," highlights this approach. The ancient Egyptians and Romans also understood the value of cleanliness, which they practiced through public baths and other forms of hygiene. Now, the scientific revolution of the 19th and early 20th centuries began to unlock the secrets of healing at a molecular level. The first modern pills were created in a lab. A key early triumph was the synthesis of aspirin in 1897. People used to chew on willow bark for headaches. Then scientists discovered how to take the best part of the bark and turn it into a modern medicine, the aspirin tablet. Now, the really big moment was when a man named Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in 1928 by accident. Another big invention was insulin, which helped people with diabetes. The discovery of penicillin and the ability to make it in large amounts for everyone during World War II changed everything. It was like magic. It could cure infections that used to kill people. So while people have been trying to make medicine for ages, the real change happened when scientists figured out how to make special medicines in a lab, especially with the discovery of penicillin. Now, the modern pharmaceutical industry as we know it today, built on scientific research and mass production, took off in the 20th centuries. Key companies that became prominent in the 20th century include Bayer. Founded in Germany in 1863, Bayer's expertise in organic chemistry allowed it to transition into pharmaceuticals, and it famously synthesized aspirin in 1897, which became a global blockbuster drug. Pfizer started in the US in 1849 as a fine chemicals company. It became a major player during World War II with the mass production of penicillin, a project that demonstrated the company's ability to scale production for a revolutionary new drug. Merck. With roots in a 17th century German pharmacy, Merck grew to become a major force in its own right, playing a significant role in developing the first effective and widely licensed measles vaccine. Eli Lilly, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Founded in 1876, Eli Lilly was one of the first companies to focus on scientific research and manufacturing. It was a pioneer in developing and commercializing insulin in the 1920s, a major breakthrough for diabetes treatment. Johnson & Johnson. Now, while a diversified healthcare company, J&J became a pharmaceutical giant by focusing on sterile surgical products and consumer health items, eventually building a massive presence in prescription drugs. Now, these companies grew into industry giants by embracing synthetic chemistry. They shifted from extracting compounds from natural sources to synthesizing new chemicals in a lab, leading to the creation of more stable, effective, and patentable drugs. Investing in research and development. Companies established dedicated R&D labs and hired scientists to systematically discover new drug candidates. Mass production and manufacturing. Advances in industrial technology, often borrowed from other sectors, allowed them to produce pills, capsules, and sterile injectables on a scale that was previously impossible. This was critical for meeting the demands for drugs like penicillin. Globalization. Companies expanded the manufacturing and distribution networks internationally, particularly after World War II, to capture a global market. Government partnerships. In some cases, like the US, governments push for penicillin production during the war. Collaborations with public entities provided the funding and the urgency needed for rapid development and scaling. Now, the time right after World War II was like a magic age for medicine. Scientists learned how to make new medicines by design, not just by luck. Big new ideas and medicines were created. Antibiotics. They found more miracle drugs to fight off infections. Vaccines. New shots were created for diseases like polio, which used to scare everyone. Heart and cancer drugs. They found new ways to treat heart problems and some cancers. The pill. The birth control pill was a huge deal, giving women control over their bodies. This was a time of huge growth for medicine, and it set the stage for how companies make and sell drugs even today. After World War II, Asian countries like Japan and India became major players in medicine, but they took different paths. After the war, Japan rebuilt its factories with government help. They first focused on making basic medicines for their own country. Later, they started inventing new drugs and selling them all over the world. India's government made a rule in 1970 that let companies copy and make cheap versions of medicines that were invented in other countries. This made India a global leader in making low-cost generic drugs, earning it the nickname the pharmacy of the world. This shows how different countries found their own way to become important in the world of medicine. Now, when you swallow a pill, it dissolves in your stomach. The medicine then enters your blood and travels through your whole body to find where it is needed to make you feel better. It's like imagining you swallowing a tiny car. This car's job is to deliver a special package to a secret city inside your body where it's needed. The car travels down a slide to your stomach. The car shell melts away. The special package inside the car gets loose and spreads out into your bloodstream, which is like a highway. It zips around to all parts of your body looking for the secret city. The package finds the right spot, like a bad germ or a sore muscle, and starts doing its job to make you feel better. And once the medicine has done its work, your body's cleanup crew, the liver and the kidneys, grabs the leftover bits. They make sure the leftover parts leave your body when you go to the bathroom. So a pill is just a way to get medicine into your body so it can travel to the right place and help you feel better. Imagine a medicine for diabetes called metformin is a tiny bus. Step 1, get on the road. You swallow the bus, it goes into your body and dissolves. Then it gets picked up by special dose in your gut and gets on the bloodstream highway. Step 2, go to the right place. The metformin bus travels on the highway straight to a city called the liver. It's a special bus that only stops at the liver. Step 3, do the job. When it gets to the liver, the bus does its job. It tells the liver to stop making so much sugar. It also helps your muscles use sugar better. Step 4, go home. The amazing thing about the metformin bus is that it doesn't get broken down by your body. After it does its job, it goes straight to your kidneys, which are like the body's exit. The kidney filters it out and it leaves your body in your pee. So the metformin bus is special because it goes straight to the liver, does its job, and then leaves your body without a fuss. That's why it's a very safe and popular medicine for diabetes. Now, how does the medicine know where to go in your body? Well, this is the coolest part. Medicine doesn't actually know anything. It's all about shapes and chemistry. Imagine a drug is a tiny key that floats around in your bloodstream. Your body has millions of tiny locks on all your cells. It's a lock and key game. The drug key is specially made to fit only 1 or 2 specific locks. It won't work on any other lock, no matter how hard it tries. Now, finding the right lock. The drug key just goes everywhere the blood goes. It bumps into all the different locks. When it finally finds the lock it's a perfect match for, it clicks into place. And once the key is in the lock, it does one of two things. It can turn the lock on like a light switch, which makes the cell do something new, like stop a feeling of pain. Or it can block the lock so that nothing else can get in, which stops a problem from happening, like a racing heartbeat. So the drug doesn't think or know where to go. It just bumps around until it finds the one lock it's made for, then it gets to work. The incredible precision and complexity of this molecular interaction are what allows modern medicines to be so effective. Think of medicines like tools in a toolbox, and each tool has a special job. We can sort them into groups based on what they do. For pain, these are called painkillers. Examples, crocin and combiflem are very common. For infections, these are called antibiotics and antivirals. They are like tiny soldiers that fight off the bad guys making you sick. Examples, amoxicillin and oseltamivir used to treat flu. For allergies, these are antihistamines which stop you from sneezing and itching. Examples, Allegra and cetirizine are widely used in India. For sickness, these are anti-nausea drugs which help you stop feeling like you want to throw up. For example, Ondem and domperidone are frequently prescribed. This is the easiest way to understand what a medicine is for, just by knowing what problem it fixes in your body. Now, getting new medicines to people is a huge balancing act. Governments have to solve two problems at once. Encourage innovation, that is, making new drugs is incredibly expensive and risky. Companies need a way to make back the money. And the second balancing act, ensure affordability. Once a drug is made, it needs to be priced so people can actually afford to use it. To ensure we get both new medicines and affordable prices, the drug industry uses a classic carrot and stick approach. The carrot encourages companies to innovate, while the stick ensures prices eventually fall for everyone. The carrot for companies: patents to encourage companies to spend billions in inventing new drugs. The government gives them a patent. Now, what it is? A patent is like a temporary monopoly. For about 20 years, the company that invented the drug is the only one allowed to sell it. Why it works? This allows the company to charge a higher price without competition, so they can earn back their investment and make a profit. No patent, no incentive to invent. The stick for affordability: generic drugs. Now, patents don't last forever. This is where affordability kicks in. When the patent expires, other companies can make cheap copies called generic drugs. Competition from generics makes prices plummet, often by 80% or more. This is the main reason medicines become affordable for everyone. Now, laws like the Hatch-Waxman Act in the US created this clear system: a period of high prices for innovation, followed by a period of low prices for access. Now, there are other tools to control prices as well. For drugs that are still under patent and therefore expensive, governments have a few other tools, one of which is price negotiation. In many countries, the government's healthcare system negotiates directly with the drug company to get a lower price. Second tool is value assessment. Agencies determine if a new drug is actually better than existing treatments and worth the high price before agreeing to pay for it. Another approach, compulsory licensing. This is a rare but powerful tool. In a health emergency, a government can allow someone else to make a patented drug without the company's permission to ensure the public can get it. Now, the system is always being debated. There are critics who say that drug companies abuse the patent system to keep prices high for too long by making tiny changes to old drugs. Companies say if governments push prices too low, it kills the profit incentive and no one will invest in discovering the next cure. There is no perfect answer. Regulators are constantly tweaking the rules to try and keep the balance, which is making sure we both get new medicines and can afford them. Now, the way our drug system is set up has created two completely different kinds of companies. The innovators, these companies invent new drugs from scratch, and the generics. These companies make cheap copies of those drugs after the patent expires. Think of it like a book. The innovator is the author who writes a new book. The generic company is a printer who makes copies of that book after the copyright expires. Now, let's look at both these models. The innovator model, the goal is to, of course, invent brand new drugs. It's expensive and risky. It can take over 10 years and cost billions of dollars to discover one new drug. Most ideas fail. The reward, of course, is a patent. Now, to make this risk worth it, the government gives the company a patent. This is like a temporary monopoly for about 20 years where only they can sell the new drug they invented. Why this matters? This monopoly allows them to charge a high price. This money pays for the drug that worked and all the failed experiments, and it funds research for the next new drug. The second model, or the phase 2, the generic model. The goal here is to make cheap copies of existing drugs. Now, after about 20 years, the patent runs out. This is called going off patent. Now, other companies can make the same drug. They don't have to reprove it's safe and effective. They just have to show their version works the same way in the body. Without the huge research costs, these generic companies can make the drug for much less. Competition between them drives the price down by 80% or more, making it affordable for everyone. If you look at the big picture, it's all very well planned. Now, this isn't an accident. It's a smart system designed by the government to solve two problems. First, we get new medicines. The patent system rewards companies for taking the risk to invent new cures. Second, we get affordable medicines. Once the patent ends, competition gives us cheap copies. In short, we accept high prices for a while to get new drugs, and then we get low prices later so that everyone can use them. It's a deal between society and drug companies to encourage both innovation and access. Now, how many new drugs have been invented? Well, it's a tricky question because the word drug can mean different things. Are we counting every single medicine, including different versions of old ones, or are we only counting brand new inventions? To get a clear answer, we usually look at the official approvals from government agencies like the FDA, which is of course the US Food and Drug Administration, which is the global gold standard. So here's the breakdown. All approved medicines. Now imagine a giant master list of every known medicine, including experimental ones and even illegal drugs. One of the biggest databases, Drug Bank, has about 18,489 substances on its list. But if we only count the ones that are actually approved for patients to use, that number is much smaller, roughly 4,750 approved drugs. Now, truly new invented from scratch drugs. This is the number that really shows us medical progress. The FDA calls a brand new drug a new molecular entity. This means it's a medicine with an active ingredient that has never been approved before. Think of it like this. A new molecular entity or enemy is like inventing the first car. A new version of an old drug, like a new dose or a new use, is like adding power windows to a car that already exists. Both are useful, but only one is a true invention. So how many of these brand new drugs or new molecular entities are there? The FDA has approved roughly 1450 or 1450 of these truly novel drugs since it started keeping detailed records. This number grows every year. And how many new drugs are invented each year? Well, the pace of innovation has been pretty fast recently. The FDA typically approves around 40 to 50 brand new drugs every year. Some recent examples include 55 in 2023 and 50 in 2024. So a simple summary looks something like this. Total number of all approved drugs ever, about 4,750. Number of truly new invented from scratch drugs, about 1450. New ones added each year, about 40 to 50. So while thousands of medicines exist, the number of major groundbreaking new drug inventions is in the hundreds, and scientists keep adding dozens more to the list every year. Now most people only see the final product, the pill or the syrup, but the pharmaceutical world uses specific terms to describe a drug's origin, composition, and status. Now here's what those terms really mean. The raw material, active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API in short, also known as the bulk drug. You can think of it as the flour in a cake. This is the pure, powerful chemical that actually produces the medicinal effect. It's the key ingredient. Bulk drug is just another term for the API when it's produced in large raw quantities before being made into a pill. You never buy this by itself. The originator, brand name drug. Now think of it as a newly published hardcover book from a major author. This is the original drug developed by a company That company invested billions in research and holds a patent, so it's sold under a brand name and is usually expensive. The copy generic drug. You can think of it as a paperback version of that same book. Now, once the patent expires, other companies can sell the exact same drug. It has the identical API as the brand name drug, is just as safe and effective, but is sold under its chemical name for a much lower price. Another term is the complex originator, of course, the biologic. You can think of it as a handmade Swiss watch. These are complex drugs made from living cells like proteins, antibodies. They are not simple chemicals. Because they are so complex to make, they are used for serious diseases like cancer and rheumatoid arthritis and are extremely expensive. Examples include insulin and Humira. Next, biosimilars. You can think of it as a high quality generic Swiss watch. Now, when a biologic's patent expires, others can make a version. Because biologics are made from living things, the copy can't be identical, but it must be proven highly similar with no differences in safety or effectiveness. It's a more affordable alternative to the original biologic. Next, specialty drugs. These are specialized, or you can think of this as specialized high-tech equipment. This is a category for very high-cost drugs that treat complex, chronic, or rare diseases. They are often biologics, may require injection or infusion, and need special handling, like refrigeration. They are typically managed by specialty pharmacies. Next, the specialty generics. You can think of it as a more affordable version of the high-tech equipment we saw earlier. Now, these are generic versions of those complex specialty drugs. They are cheaper than the original but are still more complex and expensive than a simple generic pill. Now, understanding all these categories reveals the fascinating journey from a raw chemical to the medicine in your cabinet. It shows how science, law, and business work together to fuel medical progress and provide affordable options. Now, making medicine is a global effort, and different countries have different specialties. They work together like a team to create everything from the raw ingredients to the final pill. India, often called the pharmacy of the world for generics. India's specialty is manufacturing high quality, affordable generic drugs and formulations. And why is it India good at that? Because they have a huge skilled workforce that can produce medicine at a very low cost without sacrificing quality. They have the most US FDA approved manufacturing plants outside the US, proving they meet strict global standards. They are the world's largest supplier of generic drugs, providing over 40% of the generic medicines used in the United States. Next, China, the bulk drug hub for APIs. China's specialty is producing active pharmaceutical ingredients or APIs and key starting materials, which are the raw ingredients that make medicine work. And why China is good at this? Because they have massive factories and can produce these ingredients in huge volumes for a very low cost. This makes them the world's leading supplier. They supply a large portion of the APIs needed by other countries, including the companies in India that make generic drugs. Next, United States and Europe, the innovator and biologic centers. Their specialty, innovation. Europe and US focus on research and development to discover new brand name drugs and complex biologics. Why they are good at it? Because they invest massive amounts in cutting edge science, have strong patent laws to protect new discoveries, and have highly skilled workforce. Their regulators like the FDA and EMA set the world's toughest quality and safety standards. They lead the world in creating new high value drugs for diseases like cancer. They often keep the manufacturing of these sensitive APIs and finished drugs in-house to maintain strict control and quality. In short, the global pharmaceutical industry thrives on a powerful teamwork model. While the US and Europe lead in discovering new drugs, China and India work together to manufacture the essential ingredients and affordable final versions the world depends on. Here are the top global innovative pharmaceutical companies from the US and Europe known for the research and development of new drugs. Pfizer, specialization, a giant in vaccines and medicines for a wide range of diseases. They are famous for their COVID-19 vaccine and are also leaders in creating treatments for cancer, rare diseases, and internal medicine. Johnson & Johnson, a healthcare titan that not only makes drugs but also medical devices and consumer products. Their pharmaceutical division is a leader in creating advanced medicines for cancer, immune system disorders, and neurological diseases. Merck and Company, a world leader in developing groundbreaking drugs for cancer, especially immunotherapy. They also have a massive vaccine division and create important treatments for infectious diseases and diabetes. AbbVie, originally spun off from Abbott, AbbVie or AbbVie became a powerhouse thanks to its blockbuster drug for immune related diseases like arthritis. They're also a major player in oncology and aesthetics. Roche, a global leader in biologics and personalized medicine, especially for cancer. They are also the world's largest producer of cancer drugs and have a leading diagnostics division that helps match the right drug to the right patient. Novartis focuses on innovative medicines in areas like cancer, heart disease, and neuroscience. They are also a leader in developing advanced one time cell and gene therapies that can potentially cure certain genetic diseases. Last but not the least, AstraZeneca, heavily focused on discovering treatments for cancer, heart, kidney, and metabolic diseases. They are also known for their work in respiratory medicines and were a key developer of a widely used COVID-19 vaccine. Now, while generic drug ingredients often come from India and China, companies that invent new drugs, innovator companies, are much more careful about where they get their active pharmaceutical ingredients or the APIs. Here are the main sources: in house or local production. We make it ourselves is the claim. Big pharmaceutical companies often manufacture the API for their most important and profitable drugs in their own facilities, which are mostly in the US and Europe. Why? This gives them total control over quality and protects their secret formula. The drugs are often very complex, so they need highly advanced, secure factories close to home. Another option is other trusted companies in the US and Europe. We buy from our reliable neighbors, is what they say. If they don't make it themselves, they often partner with other highly regulated manufacturers within the US and European Union. Why? Because companies in places like Germany, Switzerland, and Ireland have a long standing reputation for extremely high quality and follow the strictest rules. For an expensive patented drug, companies cannot risk quality problems from a less reliable source. Another option is, of course, other countries for specific cases. They use a trusted specialist if needed. Sometimes they might source a specific ingredient from a specialized supplier in another country, including, of course, India. This is a less common but could happen if a company there has a unique expertise or if it's for a less critical part of the drug's life cycle. The relationship is built on proven trust and high quality and not just low cost. In short, for the most valuable products, US and European drug companies keep API production close to home to ensure the highest possible quality and to protect their secrets. Now, that was about the US and Europe, but what about India? Has India invented new drugs? Yes, India has invented its own new drugs, but not as many as the big pharmaceutical companies in the US and Europe. For a long time, India's main strength was making cheap copies of existing drugs, of course, called generic drugs. However, that is changing, and Indian companies are now also focusing on creating brand new medicines. Here are some key examples of drugs invented in India. Saroglitazar, brand name Lipaglyn, developed by Zydus Life Sciences. Now, this is the first brand new drug or a new molecular entity discovered and developed entirely in India to get a global patent. It's used to treat liver disease and diabetes related health problems. Second one is enmetazobactam, developed by Orchid Pharma. It's a drug that helps antibiotics work against resistant bacteria. It's a major success because it was approved for use in both Europe and the US, proving Indian research can meet the world's highest standards. Another one is Cancroman, brand name Saheli. It was developed by a government research institute. It's a unique non-steroidal weekly birth control pill. It was a landmark Indian invention from the 1970s. Why aren't there more Indian invented drugs? Well, the main reason is history and incentives. For decades, India's laws focused on making affordable medicine, so companies made generic drugs. There was no financial reason to spend billions inventing new drugs because they couldn't be patented. This changed in 2005 when India changed its patent laws to protect new inventions. This forced Indian companies to start investing in research to create their own new drugs and compete globally. In summary, India is famous for its generic drugs, but it has also invented its own new medicines. The number is growing as Indian companies shift from just copying drugs to also inventing them. Now, the next important question is why China makes the ingredients but India makes the pills? You can think of it like a restaurant. China is great at growing the vegetables and raising the cattle, the raw ingredients. India is great at cooking those ingredients into finished meals, the final dishes. They each specialize in a different part of the process. Now, the reason that China is the king of APIs or the raw ingredients is because China focused on becoming the world's factory for the raw chemical ingredients that make medicine work. They are dominant for three main reasons. Massive scale. China built huge chemical factories that can produce ingredients on an enormous scale. Making things in such huge volumes makes each unit very cheap. They had low labor cost and less strict environmental rules, which kept their production costs very low. This made it almost impossible for other countries to compete on price. They make not just the final ingredient but also the chemicals needed to make it. This control over the entire supply chain makes them efficient and cost effective. In short, China chose to be the low cost, high volume supplier of raw materials. And of course, the next logical question is why India is the leader in formulations, which is the finished pills. India took a different path. Instead of competing on raw materials, it focused on the science of creating the final product. Here's why India excels. It has a rich history of reverse engineering. For decades, Indian law allowed companies to legally reverse engineer patented drugs. This forced them to become experts in figuring out how to turn a raw ingredient into a safe, effective, and stable pill, capsule, or syrup. India has a large English speaking workforce of chemists and pharmacists who became experts in the complex rules of agencies like the US FDA. They know how to get a drug approved for global markets. Indian companies also invested in meeting the world's highest quality standards. This made them the trusted supplier of affordable generic medicines for countries like the US, earning them the title Pharmacy of the World. In short, India chose to be the high quality, low cost manufacturer of the final product. This created a global partnership. China sells the raw ingredients to India, India turns them into finished pills for the world. The big risk is that India relies heavily on China for its ingredients. If China's supply is a problem, India's ability to make medicine is threatened. This is why India is now trying to build up its own ingredient manufacturing to become more self-reliant. Well, let's now move on to the business model of top Indian pharma companies. Well, here's a simple breakdown of the business models for India's top 10 pharma companies. India's pharma giants mostly make money by manufacturing affordable generic medicines for the world. However, each company has its own specific focus and strategy. Here's a simple look at what each one does best. Sun Pharma. It's India's largest pharma company and they focus on specialty and complex generics for markets like the US in areas like skincare and cancer. They also have a strong domestic business. Cipla is known for providing affordable medicines globally, especially in respiratory diseases and HIV and AIDS. They have a very strong presence in emerging markets like Africa. Divi's Laboratories, they are the ingredient supplier. Instead of making pills, they manufacture the raw, active pharma ingredients that other drug companies use. Their main customers are big global innovator pharma firms. Dr. Reddy's, a fully integrated company that controls everything from making the API to the final pill. They have a strong global generics business and are also developing their own new drugs and biosimilars. Zydus Life Sciences has a diversified model. They make generics but also invest in research to discover their own new drugs. Mankind Pharma focuses intensely on the Indian market. They are a leader in branded generics and consumer health products with deep reach into smaller towns and rural areas. Torrent Pharmaceuticals focuses on branded generics for chronic diseases like heart and brain disorders. They are strong in India and Europe and grow through strategic acquisitions. Lupin, a major global generics player with a significant presence in the US and Japan. They also make their own APIs and focus on areas like heart disease and antibiotics. Aurobindo Pharma, a volume-driven business. They are a giant in manufacturing and exporting a large number of generic drugs and APIs to over 125 countries, especially the US. And last but not the least, Alchem Laboratories. It has a very strong domestic formulations business in India, especially in antibiotics and stomach medicines. It's also expanding its international presence. Now, which of these companies has the most resilient business model? Well, analysts often point to two companies for having very strong and resilient models, but for completely different reasons. First one is Sun Pharma. Their model is resilient because they are diversified. They don't rely on one thing. They have a mix of simple generics, high profit specialty drugs, and a strong domestic business. This protects them if one area faces problems. Divi's Laboratories. The model is resilient because they are B2B suppliers and not consumer facing. They have long term contracts to supply APIs to big pharma companies worldwide. This provides a very stable and predictable income, shielding them from the price wars of the generic drug market. In short, while all these companies are in pharma, their strategies range from supplying ingredients and making cheap generics to focusing on the Indian consumer or developing complex drugs. The Indian pharma industry is known for making affordable generic medicines, but it's now evolving. Here's what is changing. Companies are moving beyond just copying drugs. They are now investing in R&D to discover their own new drugs and develop complex products like biosimilars. The goal is to shift from make in India to discover in India. Companies are using artificial intelligence and digital tools to speed up drug discovery, making manufacturing smarter and manage supplies better. This is no longer a luxury but a necessity to stay competitive. The focus is shifting from simple generic pills to more complex, high value products like biosimilars and specialty drugs for chronic diseases. These are harder to make but offer better profits and less competition. Indian companies are increasingly partnering with global giants for research, manufacturing, and selling drugs. This helps them share costs, access new technology, and enter international markets more easily. With growing global scrutiny, Indian companies are focusing heavily on maintaining high quality standards and meeting strict regulations like those of the US FDA. This is essential to retain trust as a reliable global supplier. India's own healthcare market is expanding rapidly due to rising incomes, better health awareness, and government schemes like Ayushman Bharat. This is driving demand for medicines, especially in smaller cities. The future looks bright with several key growth areas. The Indian pharma market is expected to grow significantly from around 130 billion US dollars by 2030 to 450 billion dollars by 2047. India is set to become a global hub for biosimilars, cheaper versions of expensive biologic drugs. This will be a major growth driver. The push for R&D will continue. While still early, sustained investment and government support could make India an important player in global drug innovation in the long run. Also, as the world looks to reduce its dependence on China for APIs, India's manufacturing capability and quality compliance can help it become a more reliable global supplier. The industry will also increasingly build with digital health like telemedicine, AI-driven diagnostics, and wellness apps, creating new opportunities in preventive and personalized healthcare. To summarize, the Indian pharma industry is transforming from a generic drug supplier to an innovation-led, high-quality global player with strong growth ahead in both domestic and international markets. And with this concludes my deep dive into the fascinating and complex world of the pharmaceutical industry. This exploration was an attempt to build a comprehensive 360-degree understanding of the sector, from the raw materials to the final formulations, and from the innovative blockbusters to the essential generics that supply the world. My genuine hope is that this report has at least gone some way in demystifying the sector for you, providing a solid foundation to analyze pharma companies with greater confidence and clarity. Understanding the nuances of the business models, regulatory landscapes, and growth drivers is key to making informed decisions. I would be truly grateful for your sincere feedback. Your thoughts on what was useful or what could be explored further are invaluable. Well, that's all for now. Until next time, goodbye and happy investing.